You sit here before me, in the familiar density of the living world. Yet, even as we speak, there is a realm unfolding beside us that most eyes cannot see. We call it the realm beyond death, as if it were some foreign country at the edge of a map. But in truth, it interpenetrates this moment. You breathe, and with every breath, the threshold between here and there thins. I wish to speak to you not in the language of dry metaphysics, but in the living symbols that your unconscious already knows, for the soul's journey beyond death is not an abstraction to be catalogued, it is an archetypal drama, as intimate as your own shadow and as vast as the collective unconscious itself. There is a mystery, long known to Eastern traditions and quietly whispered in the West, that the soul lingers for 49 days after the loosening of the body's grasp. 7 cycles of 7 days, each psychic chamber, each revealing deeper strata of the self. You may imagine these days as a passage through distant worlds, but I tell you, they are movements within the psyche, stripped bare. In life, your ego sits in the foreground, constructing the illusion of separateness, filtering the raw power of the unconscious into manageable fragments. At death, that filter dissolves. What you call the afterlife begins as the unmediated confrontation with your own totality, light and shadow alike. The first moments after death are not unlike the first moments of a dream, when the boundaries of time and space dissolve and images carry the weight of entire histories. If you have not learned to navigate your dreams in life, the initial surge of visions may terrify you. Archetypes will rush forward, not as concepts, but as living presences the Great Mother in her nurturing and devouring forms. The wise old man or woman, radiant with impossible knowledge, the shadow vast and unflinching, presenting all that you rejected in yourself. These are not beings in the literal sense, but psychic realities so intense that the unprepared soul mistakes them for external judges or saviors. Your own unconscious becomes your environment. And so the 49 days unfold as a sequence of psychological initiations. In the first cycle, the soul confronts the residue of its attachment to the body and the sensory world. The memory of weight, hunger, pain, and pleasure still clings to it, like dew on a leaf at dawn. Many linger here, unable to release the familiar images of home, lovers, unfinished work. This is the region of what the Tibetans call the peaceful deities, but what I would name the benevolent archetypes, those aspects of the self that approach with compassion, offering a gentle invitation to move deeper. If in life you cultivated inner stillness and dialogue with the unconscious, you will recognize these forms as allies and pass through without struggle. If not, their light may blind you, and you will retreat into the comforting shadows of memory, delaying your own liberation. As the days pass, the imagery shifts. What was once peaceful now becomes wrathful, not in the sense of cruelty, but in the archetypal function of breaking the ego's final defenses. You see, the ego does not die with the body. It clings fiercely, attempting to reassert control over this boundless psychic ocean. It will disguise itself as voices of authority, familiar patterns of thought, even the echo of your own inner critic. But in the Bardo, the intermediate state, such disguises are stripped away, the wrathful archetypes descend, shattering illusions, demanding that you face the truth you refused in life. The shadow stands here in its purest form, not as the petty darkness of personal grudges, but as the accumulated unlived life, the rejected potentials, the sins of omission and commission alike. The untrained soul may flee from this, seeking refuge in yet another illusion, only to find itself pulled deeper into the labyrinth. It is crucial to understand that these 49 days are not measured by earthly clocks. They are psychic durations, marked by the intensity of confrontation and assimilation. For one soul, a single day may stretch into what feels like centuries. For another, it may be. But the blink of an eye, the number 49 is symbolic 7, the number of wholeness multiplied by itself, representing the complete cycle of psychic integration before rebirth or release. In this sense, the journey is a spiral, each turn bringing you closer to the center of the self, or further into the periphery of another incarnation. Dreams are your best rehearsal for this passage. Every night, you die a little, the ego dissolves, and you enter a symbolic realm where your waking logic cannot follow. Yet, most of you wake and dismiss it as if these were mere fictions of the mind. You do not realize that you are practicing for the great departure, learning the language of images. That will be your only compass when the body falls away. In dreams, the archetypes speak to you in miniature, in the Bardo. They speak in their full voice. The more you have befriended them in life, the less they will appear as strangers in death. Beyond the archetypes, there is an even deeper current in this 49-day journey, the confrontation with what I have called the self. The totality of the psyche, the self is both the architect and the destination of your life. It contains the seed of what you might call God, though clothed in the garments of your own inner language. In the early stages of the after-death journey, the self often appears in symbolic form, a luminous figure, a city of light, an infinite mandala, unfolding. These are invitations, but the ego, terrified of its own dissolution, may grasp at them as possessions. This light is mine, this bliss is mine. The moment you claim them as property, they vanish, and you are left again in the shadows, learning that in this realm, only surrender allows you to proceed. The 49 days are a mirror. Everything you encounter is yourself, amplified beyond the distortion of the physical senses. If you see judgment, it is your own self-judgment, magnified to cosmic scale. If you see paradise, it is the flowering of your own unlived love. This is why traditions across the world have urged the living to prepare for death, not through morbid fixation, but through inner work. Every act of self-knowledge in life shortens the bewilderment in death. Every reconciliation with your own shadow in life spares you from wrestling with it for eons in the afterlife. And yet, I would not have you think of this journey as a test. You must pass with perfect score. It is more like an unfolding play in which you are both actor and audience, learning the script as you go. The mistakes, the retreats, the illusions, these are also part of the process. Some will move swiftly toward the center of the self, merging into what mystics have called the clear light, never to return. Others will wander through dreamlike landscapes until the pull of earthly life draws them back into a new form. Rebirth is not punishment, nor is release a reward. Both are movements in the eternal rhythm of the psyche's evolution. Perhaps you wonder, why 49 days? Why not 50 or 100? Here we touch the symbolic structure of the psyche itself. 7 is the number of completion, the 7 chakras of the Eastern body-mind, the 7 days of creation, the 7 stages of alchemical transformation. To multiply 7 by itself is to create a complete matrix of transformation, in which each cycle of 7 days corresponds to one layer of the psyche, peeled away like the skins of an onion until the core is revealed. In my work, I have seen this number emerge spontaneously in dreams and active imagination, as if the unconscious itself recognizes this rhythm as a natural period of transition. If you could see your own death now, you might recognize faces from your dreams, landscapes that feel strangely familiar. The unconscious does not invent at random. It is a master of rehearsal, long before your last breath. It has been staging the 49-day journey in symbolic dress, hoping you will notice the pattern. Have you never woken from a dream of crossing a river, or boarding a train whose destination you could not see? These are fragments of the departure, echoes of the soul rehearsing for its voyage. If in life you move through smaller versions of the same process, the end of a relationship, the loss of a home, the shedding of an old identity, these are miniature deaths, each followed by a liminal period in which the old self has dissolved, but the new has not yet solidified. This liminality is the psychological equivalent of the Bardo. And the same laws apply. If you cling to what has been lost, you stagnate in the shadowlands. If you open to the uncertainty, you pass through to a new form of being. Death itself is only the final and most complete of these transformations. In the days ahead, as we move deeper into this lecture, I will invite you to imagine your own 49-day journey, not as a morbid curiosity, but as a profound meditation on your current life. For the way you live now is the way you will travel then. The unresolved conflicts, the unlived dreams, the repressed longings, all will accompany you beyond the body. The more you make peace with them now, the more lightly you will walk through the gates of the unseen. And so, as we move deeper into this mystery, I want you to feel the weight of the transition, not as something distant, but as an atmosphere already pressing gently on your skin. Imagine for a moment that you have released the last breath, and the familiar textures of the world begin to melt away. At first, there is silence, not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that hums with infinite presence. You are not drifting into nothingness. You are being drawn inward into a reality where the outer and inner are no longer two. The walls of perception have dissolved, and now the psyche stands naked before itself. It is here, in what could be called the second cycle of 7 days, that the illusions of identity begin to crumble. You see, the ego is built from countless stories. You have told yourself stories about who you are, where you belong, what you have achieved or failed to achieve, These stories are not the self. They are garments you have worn in the marketplace of life. In death, these garments are stripped away, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, depending on how tightly you have clung to them. Those who have identified themselves entirely with their roles, parent, lover, worker, hero, victim, often experience this as a kind of existential unmasking. The face beneath the mask is unfamiliar and for some terrifying, but this is necessary, for without surrendering the false face, you cannot behold the eternal countenance of the self. Here, the archetypes become more fluid, shifting shapes before your very gaze. You may see the Great Mother now as a serene figure bathed in light, and the next moment as a vast, churning ocean that threatens to pull you under. You may encounter the wise old man as a kindly guide, then watch as his features dissolve into the stern visage of a judge. These transformations are not betrayals. They are the psyche's way of revealing that every archetype contains its opposite. If you have loved the nurturing mother but rejected her devouring side, the latter will come now to claim its place in your wholeness. You are being taught that light without shadow is an illusion, and shadow without light is despair. By the third cycle, the realm begins to mirror not the collective archetypes alone, but the uniquely personal contents of your unconscious. Memories long forgotten rise like phantoms, not to punish, but to be integrated. You may relive the tenderness of a childhood embrace, only to be followed by the cold absence of a parent who could not stay. You may see the face of someone you wronged, their silent gaze asking for recognition in the living world. You could turn away, distract yourself, bury such moments beneath the noise of daily tasks. Here, there is no such escape. Time is not linear. You are inside the memory, feeling every thread of its emotional fabric. The only way through is to accept, to acknowledge, to bring what was once exiled back into the circle of your being. This is why the after-death journey is not about judgment in the moralistic sense. There is no external tribunal handing down sentences. There is only the self presenting you with the totality of your life, unfiltered, unedited. The terror and the bliss are both of your own making. In many traditions, this stage has been portrayed as a weighing of the heart, a scale balancing truth and falsehood, but the scale is your own inner balance, tipping toward liberation when honesty outweighs denial. Some cannot bear the weight of this unveiling and retreat into dreamlike states, creating worlds within worlds to delay the confrontation. These may be the heavens or hells described in scripture, psychic landscapes shaped by the unresolved patterns of the soul. As the cycles deepen, the intensity increases in the fourth and fifth sets of 7 days. The peaceful and wrathful visions reach their apex. The peaceful archetypes offer the purest forms of compassion, radiating the clear light of the self. It is said that if you can merge with this light, you are liberated from the wheel of becoming. But here lies the paradox. To merge with the light, you must let go of the very self that longs for liberation. The ego whispers, this is bliss. We must keep it. And in that grasping, the light recedes, leaving you once more among the shifting forms of the Bardo. This is why mystics across traditions have spoken of surrender, of dying before you die. For only in the death of clinging can the soul rest in its own essence. The restful archetypes now arrive in their most overwhelming forms, not to destroy you, but to burn away the final residues of ignorance. They may appear as monstrous beings, as storms, as cosmic fires, as the voices of those you feared or hated. They are the guardians at the threshold, ensuring that only the soul that has embraced its own totality may pass into the clear light without distortion. To face them is to face the shadow in its most absolute form, the sum of all that you denied in yourself, and project it onto the world. If you can recognize these beings as your own psychic creations, they transform instantly, revealing their true nature as protectors of the self. If not, you may flee into the next cycle, where the pull toward rebirth becomes almost irresistible. By the sixth cycle, the imagery begins to condense. The vast landscapes of archetypes and memories shrink into more personal, more intimate visions. The pull of familiar patterns intensifies. You may feel drawn to scenes of earthly life, to people and places you once loved. The seed of karma stirs, not as punishment, but as the gravitational pull of unresolved growth. If your journey has been marked by avoidance, by refusal to face the deeper truths, this pull may sweep you into the current of rebirth without conscious choice. But if you have moved through each cycle with awareness, integrating what arises, you may stand now at a place of decision, not the decision of the ego, but of the deeper self, which knows whether another life is needed or whether the journey has reached its natural culmination. And so we come to the final cycle, the seventh set of 7 days. Here, all images dissolve into a single, unbroken field. There is no great mother, no wise old man, no shadow, no light, no dark, only the luminous emptiness from which all forms arise. This is the realm beyond opposites, the place where the self is no longer an object, but the very ground of being. In this space, the question of life and death loses meaning, for you see that both are movements within the eternal psyche. If you can abide here without grasping, without fear, you are free. If you cannot, the wheel turns again, and the journey begins anew, in another form, another story, another mask. I tell you these things not to frighten you, but to awaken you. The 49 days are not waiting for some distant moment. Their seeds are present in every dream, every crisis, every act of self-reflection. You rehearse them each time you allow an old identity to die, each time you face a shadow instead of fleeing, each time you surrender to the unknown. The true preparation for death is not a ritual performed at the end, but the lifelong work of becoming whole. In the living world, you still have the privilege of choice, of practice, of conscious engagement with the unconscious. You can meet the archetypes in dreams, in art, in imagination, in the quiet moments when the noise of the ego fades. You can speak to them, learn their language, integrate their gifts and their challenges. In doing so, you make allies for the journey beyond the body. Allies who will greet you not as strangers but as long-remembered companions. Remember, the 49 days are not a foreign country. They are the unveiling of the world you already inhabit. To live well is to die well. And to die well is to live in full awareness of the depths that surround you now. Your death will not change who you are. It will reveal who you have always been. And now, as we approach the final movement of this contemplation, I want you to feel that the space between the living and the dead has all but disappeared. It is as though the air here in this room has taken on the strange density of a dream, and every breath you draw carries you both toward life and toward death in the same instant. This is because the two are not separate. They are phases of one continuum. Like the rising and falling of the tide, when you finally cross the threshold, you will not find yourself stepping into a strange, alien world, but into the deeper layers of the same psyche that has been moving through you your entire life. The 49 days, though they appear to be an after-death passage, are also a mirror for the living. They show you, in magnified form, the process that is already occurring in every moment. You dare to face yourself. To confront an uncomfortable truth now is to rehearse the peaceful and wrathful visions. To watch an old self fall away in the face of some great change is to live through the stripping away of the ego's masks. To feel your identity dissolve in love, in art, in mystical experience, is to touch the clear light that will greet you after the body's last breath. What is unknown to you in life will be overwhelming in death. What is familiar to you in life will be your pathfinder in the great crossing. And here lies the profound challenge. Most people live as if the inner world is a vague, dim reflection of the outer one, when in truth, the outer world is the faint shadow cast by the inner. We chase the solidity of forms, forgetting that they are woven from the same fabric as our dreams. Then, when death strips away these forms, we are bewildered, like a man waking in a foreign city whose language he does not speak. But if you have learned the language of symbols while you are still breathing, if you have walked the corridors of your own unconscious with curiosity instead of fear, then the after-death realm will not be foreign. It will be a homecoming. The 49-day cycle reveals that consciousness is not a fixed point, but a flow through stages of integration. You will move from the raw immediacy of release through the confrontation with archetypes, through the integration of personal memory into the choice or the compulsion of rebirth or dissolution. This flow is the same whether you are leaving the body or undergoing a profound transformation in life. You have lived it before, the shattering of an old certainty, the surge of raw emotion, the encounter with long-buried truths, the sudden sense that you stand at a threshold where you must choose to step forward or retreat. Every soul walks these steps again and again, in life and in death. In the language of dreams, this journey is always being hinted at. The dream of crossing a river, of stepping onto a bridge that vanishes into fog, of being pursued by a figure who turns out to be yourself, these are whispers of the Bardo state. The psyche practices endlessly for the great crossing, sending you these messages night after night, hoping you will take them seriously enough to learn, but most dismiss them as the idle play of the mind. And so when the body dies. They are confronted with the same language they ignored in life. Only now it is absolute and inescapable. The key, always, is recognition. In the Bardo, the moment you recognize a vision as your own mind's projection, you are freed from its power to bind you. This is not to say the visions lose their force. They may still blaze with unbearable light or howl with demonic fury, but the recognition creates a space within you, a still point from which you can move without panic. In life, the same is true. When you recognize an emotion as your own creation, not an external attack, you are no longer enslaved by it. When you see that the enemy you have feared is your own shadow, you are free to integrate what was once feared into the fullness of your being. Do not imagine that this work is meant only for saints and mystics. Every person will walk the 49-day path. The only difference is whether you walk it blind or with eyes open. To walk with eyes open, you must begin now. While the veil between the conscious and unconscious is still flexible, while you can still return from the visions and reflect on them, meditation, dream work, active imagination, deep self-examination. These are not hobbies. They are the training ground for the ultimate passage. Every time you sit in stillness and watch the play of images within, you are stepping into the same stream you will cross when you leave this life. And yet, there is something more subtle at work in the 49 days. Something that defies the tidy maps of the mind. For in the deepest moments of the journey, all images dissolve, not just the forms of the archetypes, but the very notion of self and other. Here, there is no vision to cling to, no voice to follow, no path to walk. This is the pure ground of being what some have called the clear light, what others name God, what I would call the self in its unconditioned essence. It is not something you see in the way you see an object. It is the awareness in which seeing itself arises. It is the source from which all forms emerge and to which they all return. In life, this clear light sometimes breaks through in moments of overwhelming beauty. In love, that strips away all boundaries. In grief so profound that the heart is shattered open. It is there in the quiet moments when time seems to stop, when the self disappears and only presence remains. If you have tasted this while alive, then when it comes to greet you after death, you will know it as your own essence. If not, it may be too vast, too formless, and you may turn away, longing for the familiar shapes of thought and identity, thus beginning the cycle of becoming once again. The 49 days are a gift, though they may not seem so to the frightened soul. They are the psyche's final offering in this lifetime, the last and most complete opportunity to see yourself without distortion in life. The mirrors are clouded. In death, they are clear. You may find yourself weeping at the beauty you never allowed yourself to live, or trembling at the pain you inflicted and could not admit. But if you can endure this seeing without denial, without grasping, you will find that nothing in you is truly alien. Even the darkest shadow is part of the whole, and the whole is holy. This is why I say that to prepare for death is to prepare for life, for the same courage, the same openness, The same willingness to see the truth is required in both. The journey beyond death is not an escape from the work of individuation, it is its final stage. And individuation, as I've always said, is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. To be whole is to carry within you both the light and the shadow, the joy and the grief, the creation and the destruction, and to know that all are expressions of the same eternal source. As you leave here today, I would ask you to consider your own 49-day journey, not as a distant event, but as something already unfolding in the deep currents of your being. Ask yourself, what visions would greet me now? If I were to step beyond the body tonight, would I know the faces of the archetypes as my own? Would I recognize the clear light when it came, or would I flee into the comfort of familiar illusions? Whatever your answer, begin the work. Now, speak with your dreams. Listen to the silences between your thoughts. Invite the shadow to sit at your table. Let the self reveal itself in every crack and fracture of the life you live. For the soul's 49-day journey is not about reaching a destination. It is about realizing that you have always been in motion toward yourself. Death is only the loosening of the final knot. And beyond that, there is no beyond only the infinite presence you have carried within you all along. And so, as we reach the final turn of this spiral, I want you to understand something. With all the gravity your soul can bear, the 49 days are not a passage you will one day walk. They are breathing you now. Every choice you make is a ripple in that future ocean. Every shadow you reject. Every truth you welcome. Every mask you remove in the trembling light of honesty becomes the map you will hold in the Bardo. When you die, you do not suddenly become someone else. You enter a world where nothing can be hidden. And the total sum of your being is revealed in its raw, unvarnished truth. This is why some traditions speak of death as a mirror, but I tell you, it is more than a mirror, it is an amplifier. The quiet resentments you carried in life may roar like storms. The love you gave freely will blaze like suns. The subtle patterns you thought invisible, the way you withdrew when afraid, the way you reached when desperate, these will stand before you as living forms. You will meet them not as abstractions, but as beings clothed in symbol and light, in shadow and fire. Some will extend a hand to lead you deeper. Others will block the path until you have the courage to see what they truly are. And in this great unveiling, you will discover something both humbling and liberating. There has never been a single enemy outside yourself. Even the most fearsome, wrathful deities, even the endless labyrinths in which you might wander, are expressions of your own mind. You are the architect of your heavens and your hells. To see this without flinching is the beginning of true freedom. And yet, most turn away. They prefer the familiar suffering of repetition to the unknown freedom of release. The 49 days are not merely a test. They are the psyche's final alchemy in this life. Imagine a furnace in which all that is untrue in you is burned away. This is not cruelty, it is purification. The peaceful visions melt your resistance with compassion. The wrathful visions shatter your resistance with power. Both are the hands of the self, shaping you for whatever comes next, be it dissolution into the clear light or the shaping of a new form, to continue the work unfinished. The ego, of course, will fight this. It will cling to familiar identities, grasp at beloved images. or recoil into imagined refuges. But the 49 days have no interest in preserving your masks. They are devoted entirely to revealing your essence. What then does it mean to be ready? It does not mean becoming flawless. It means becoming intimate with yourself, so intimate that nothing in you is a stranger. It means recognizing your own rage before it becomes a demon in the after-death realm. It means touching your own grief before it engulfs you as an endless ocean. It means learning to look into your own eyes in the mirror of dreams without turning away. Read the language of your unconscious now, while you can still return from it. Practice surrender now, while the stakes feel smaller. For in the Bardo, every moment is absolute. Every choice echoes through eternity. And do not forget, the 49 days are also the 49 layers of life itself. You live them again and again. Each time you let go of a life you have outgrown, each time you stand in the silence after something dear has been taken, each time you step across an unseen threshold into the unknown, when you treat these moments with reverence, you are rehearsing your death in the most sacred way. When you treat them with avoidance, you are rehearsing the confusion and fear that will meet you there. If you have ever stood beside someone who is dying, you may have felt the strange doubling of time, how the minutes seem to stretch and the air grows thick with meaning. This is the beginning of the 49-day field opening around them. Even before the body stops, the psyche begins to loosen its threads from the fabric of the physical. For some, this loosening is peaceful. For others, it is tumultuous. And yet, the patterns are always the same. A drawing inward, a gathering of visions, a subtle shift from outer attachment to inner reality. For those who have prepared, death is not an exile, but a return. They recognize the peaceful deities as their own wisdom. They greet the wrathful deities as their own shadow. Finally welcomed home, they do not cling to the clear light, they merge with it. For they have learned in life that nothing real can be possessed. For those who have not prepared, the journey is longer, the detours more winding, the visions more frightening. But even then, the self is patient. If it takes 7 more cycles of 49 days, or 77, the work will be done. The wheel turns until the soul is ready to stand without fear in the naked truth. And so I speak to you now, not as a voice from history, but as the living archetype you have called into this room. I am telling you plainly, begin your journey today. Do not wait for the diagnosis, the accident, the final breath. Close your eyes tonight and walk into your dreams as though they were the Bardo. Speak to the figures you meet. Ask them what they are showing you. Let the landscapes teach you how to move without panic, how to rest when the mind trembles, how to recognize the light when it blinds you. This is not fantasy. It is your truest training ground. One day, the 49 days will open before you, and there will be no turning back. The forms will rise, the light will blaze, the shadows will swell. You will remember, perhaps dimly at first, that you have been here before, that you have practiced for this moment all your life, And then you will know every tear you shed in truth, every shadow you embraced, every mask you removed, it was all for this. For in that moment, the self will stand before you, not as an image, but as the infinite presence that you are. And whether you step into its light forever or turn again to the wheel, you will know that nothing has been wasted and nothing was ever truly lost. Live now as though the 49 days have already begun. For in a deeper sense, the Bardo is not a place. It is a state of consciousness, and you are already in it.